The 19th Amendment established women's right to vote. But for women of color, the fight for suffrage wasn't over. From journalist Ida B. Wells to Marie-Louise Bottineau Baldwin and Mabel Lee, who advocated for Native and Asian American women, respectively. Amelia Boynton Robinson, who was bloodied and beaten at the Edmund Pettus Bridge, who fought for the passage of the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And Georgia's former Democratic gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams, who's working to restore the same legislation. Historically, racist officials and social systems work to suppress the right to vote for women of color, particularly Black women, because their numbers can drastically shape elections.
Black women will help, for example, elect the first African American member of Congress. Oscar DePriest is elected in 1928 from Chicago because Black women in Chicago organize, get themselves registered, and come out to vote along with Black men, and they put Oscar DePriest over the top, and he goes to Congress.
That power remains intact 100 years later. Black women voters organize and mobilize.
Black women, through their organizing historically, through Black sororities, through the Black church, even if they weren't given necessarily leadership roles, they've always been organizing, and I think have this long history of seeing the importance of the ballot.
And show up to vote.
One of the issues in the United States is that we have very low voter turnout as compared with other Western democracies, for example. But African American women turn out disproportionately as compared to other parts of the American electorate. So more, if you will, bang for your buck when Black women come to the polls because they come out in these large numbers.
Love trumps hate. Black women supported 2016 presidential candidate Hillary Clinton at about twice the rate of white women and at higher rates than their Black male counterparts. While this voting power hasn't always evolved into policy, political experts say that may change with the 2020 presidential election.
It's often been said that Black women are the keepers of democracy, both drawing on their experiences with racism and sexism and the intersection of those two identities.
Former slave turned abolitionist and activist Sojourner Truth spoke about those experiences in the 1850s, giving us the now famous Ain't I a Woman speech. Almost 170 years later, politicians can't ignore those experiences anymore.
Will we be the generation that finally wipes out the stain of racism from our national character?
And along with the first Black and Asian American woman on a presidential ticket,
I accept your nomination for Vice President of the United States of America.
Is a record number of Black women entering the race for Congress.
Today, the people won.
At least 130 Black or multiracial Black women filed to run for congressional seats in this year's election, according to the Center for American Women and Politics. It's a record number.
And Black people don't have to vote Democrat.
Including Republican congressional candidates like Kimberly Klacik, who is running for Maryland's 7th District, the seat once held by the late Representative Elijah Cummings. And while the COVID-19 pandemic may affect 2020 elections, it cannot stop this year's watershed moment for Black women and their votes. Lauren Magarino, Newsy, Chicago.